This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, and Ash. Our story begins near the end of the first Insomniac Spider-Man game, during the mission Come Into My Parlor, in which Peter serves as a distraction so that Mary Jane can sneak into Norman Osborn's penthouse to search for the Devil's Breath laboratory. Here she discovers a secret room housing a terminal that not only has the location of the lab, but also security camera footage showing Norman and Otto Octavius turning young Martin Lee into Mr. Negative, albeit accidentally. Figuring this is just the kind of evidence she and Peter will need, MJ hastily begins downloading it onto a flash drive, only to be startled by the appearance of a spider, causing her to stumble back and shatter a glass cage while releasing the spider into the lab. To make matters worse, this commotion draws the attention of Silver Sable, forcing MJ to hide behind the bench she just crashed into, though this just gives the spider something new to crawl on, with it scuttling across her shoulder and then slowly closer to her neck. And it is here that we see the divergence from canon. As well in the main timeline, the arachnid chose not to strike, instead crawling inside her jacket where it would stay until crossing paths with Miles. Here it is not so merciful, spreading its mandibles and sinking them deep into exposed flesh. Unable to help herself, MJ lets out a small pained gasp, with this drawing Sable's notice, though just before the silver-haired woman is able to duck down and point her gun at the interloper, MJ feels a strange sensation in the back of her head that tells her to move, with this momentary forewarning allowing her to scurry around the counter and remain hidden, though she doesn't know how Sable can't hear her heart pounding, as right now it's all she can hear. Another thing the redhead does not know is what that tingle was, though chalking it up to instinct she's honed staying one step ahead of demons and tombstone goons, she does not give it much thought, instead contacting Pete for an emergency pickup, or grabbing a Sable International stun gun for good measure. Like when hiding from Silver Sable, her instincts prove invaluable here, as whenever MJ would come into a soldier's line of sight, she feels that sensation again, allowing her to stay out of view, and thus make her exit much more comfortably, as unlike Cannon she doesn't have to take a running leap off a penthouse veranda to avoid being shot by Sable mercenaries. All the same, she and Pete do swing their way to a nearby rooftop to discuss what they've learned, with Peter falling back on his old habit of stressing and blaming himself. Though she had wanted to discuss the spider bite with him, MJ does not want to add to his burdens, instead choosing to keep it to herself until the crisis is over, while promising to look after the evacuees at Feast, so that Spider-Man can do what he does best and save the city without needing to worry about the people Peter Parker loves. With this settled, the events of the game's main story wraps up the same as in canon, with Peter defeating Mr. Negative and Doc Ock, though still coming out the loser, as there is only enough Devil's Breath anti-serum to either start mass-producing a vaccine that will save countless lives but take time, or to save one person in critical condition, such as Aunt May. Remembering that with great power comes great responsibility, Peter chooses to give the cure to Dr. Michaels so that he can make the vaccine, then takes his place by his beloved aunt's side so that he can be with her when she passes. The following afternoon, May is laid to rest beside Uncle Ben, while Mary Jane joins Pete and several others to pay their respect, all of whom have had a chance to live because of her sacrifice. Though for MJ, this life will not be what it was before, as she quickly discovers that she is stronger and faster than ever, while also definitely having a sixth sense for danger that she gains a greater understanding of the more she uses it. Having witnessed Pete exhibit all these traits since becoming Spider-Man, MJ decides to put her hunch to the test by attempting to climb her wall and onto the ceiling of her apartment, though it comes as a shock all the same when her hands prove sticky enough to carry her up there without issue. Thanks to her journalistic training and instincts, MJ has little trouble piecing together the cause of these new powers, as that spider in Norman's lab must have been radioactive just like the one that bit Pete all those years ago. The only question is why the mayor would need or want a radioactive spider, though currently figuring that out is low on the to-do list, as right now, MJ's top priority is sharing the news of her powers with Peter, and discussing what to do moving forward. Not wanting any prying eyes, she invites him over to her place, with Pete mistaking this for a makeup dinner, since he had to leave prematurely last time, only to instead be given the shock of his life when MJ uses her new strength to leap up and stick upside down to the ceiling with ease. Naturally, the brown-haired man has questions, with MJ fielding them all, and while he isn't thrilled that she kept this from him, he understands that she was trying to help and asks whether she has any ideas how she wants to use her new powers. Having given it some thought, MJ replies that she wants to fight crime with him. After all, they are partners, and this way she can be right there beside him rather than needing to be the one who's always getting rescued. Briefly, Peter's protective instincts scream at him to refuse this and tell her it's too dangerous, but remembering how this sort of thinking is what led to their breakup, not to mention the fact that there's no way he could have defeated the Sinister Six without help from her and his other friends, he reluctantly accepts this, though under the firm proviso that she undergo training with him before she's allowed out in the field, since after what happened to May, he couldn't bear being responsible for her death too. Cupping his face with her hand, MJ reassures him that what happened to May was Lee's fault, not his, though she agrees it's probably for the best if you show her the ropes, or rather webs, of being a superhero. Lightening up a little, Pete laughs that her joke was terrible. Though sharp-witted as ever, MJ is quick to point out that he's one to talk, considering all the cheesy one-liners she's heard him spout over the years. Raising his hands defensively, Pete retorts that one-liners are an important part of being a superhero, and will be a major section of her study, though this only makes MJ roll her eyes and sardonically state that they better get on with it then. At first, these lessons start small, with stuff like extended wall crawling to build up stamina, and target practice with one of Pete's old web shooters for aim, since as MJ will learn, even with spider powers, these aren't things she can pick up overnight. Fortunately, Peter is a good and attentive teacher, giving plenty of praise for success, and constructive criticism when things don't work out, that MJ always has something to work towards. In turn, she is a highly focused and motivated student, working tirelessly towards this goal while still successfully maintaining her job at the Daily Bugle, though it seems her skills are not the only thing that are growing, as all this time spent in close proximity during their private training is enough to remind both Peter and MJ not just how well they work together, but how much they enjoy each other's company, leading to an earlier reconciliation and resumption of their relationship than in canon. It is also around this time that Peter deems MJ ready to begin more hands-on training by joining him when he goes out on patrol, though this will require a costume to hide her identity. Due to MJ not being able to fit one of his old suits the way Miles could, Peter sets to work designing her a new one right away, though when MJ finds out about this, she insists on having some input, with this becoming yet another collaboration between the two. As she will be Spider-Man's crime-fighting partner, MJ agrees that her suit should keep the spiderweb motif, though she doesn't want a full balaclava-style mask, figuring that something that covers her eyes and upper face should be enough. Playfully, Peter tells her not to come crying to him when she gets a bug in her nose or mouth, though all the same, he respects her decision and makes the adjustment. Another key difference between her suit and his is that instead of the crimson and blue that Peter has been rocking for 8 years, MJ's outfit will be a paler shade of red as to not clash with her hair, and white to match the new spider emblem that has become iconic to Spider-Man over the last few months. As for actually making the suit, that is the tricky part, since most of Peter's suit supplies are stashed back at the Octavius Industries lab, which has been sealed up by the police following the Doc Ock incident. Though showing that daring streak that has gotten her in and out of a lot of bad situations over the years, MJ suggests they sneak in through the vents and go get them, something Peter reluctantly acknowledges would be good real-world training, while also ensuring the cops don't come across his stuff, which they might be tempted to search for prints or other DNA. However, before they go, there is one matter they must address: MJ's hero name, since while it's unlikely anyone will overhear them speaking, Peter still wants to take the precautions so that MJ's identity isn't exposed. Having known this would be coming eventually and thus planned ahead, the aspiring hero replies that she thinks she'd like to be called Spinnerette, as it keeps the spider theming while still clearly giving her an identity all her own. Understanding this, Peter agrees, grinning that he loves it when she uses scientific terminology. Though pushing him back playfully, MJ laughs that he can tell her all about it later, but right now they've got a heist to pull off. Though he thinks heist is a little melodramatic, Peter does not object, instead taking point as the pair make their way to the lab under the cover of night, with MJ admittedly feeling a little silly, as she's wearing a borrowed mask and web shooters over her usual jacket and jeans. To their great surprise, they find that fortune has smiled on them for once, as the place is deserted. Pragmatically, MJ suggests the cops probably didn't have any officers to spare considering they're still rounding up demons and raft escapees, to which Peter agrees, though luckily, soon they'll have twice the spider power helping them out, so hopefully the city will be back to normal soon. Crawling around to a nearby vent, MJ follows Pete as he slips inside, all the while musing that these things are roomier than they look. Chuckling a little, Pete agrees that it surprised him too at first, though it also helps that their spider metabolism keeps them thin enough to fit, since it'd be embarrassing if Spider-Man had to call the fire department because he was stuck in an air duct. Thankfully, this is a pretty easy job, as it only takes about 2 minutes to reach Peter's hiding spot, and after applying a bit of web solvent to detach the equipment from the ceiling, the pair begin heading back the way they came, crawling out onto the wall once again, and then whipping into the air, with their sights set on home. Thanks to recovering his stuff, Pete has a far easier time building MJ's suit than he did in canon, having one ready for about 3 months after the defeat of Doc Ock, in contrast to the year it took him to make Miles's from scratch. As a result, when MJ's work at the Bugle tips them off to the resurgence of the Magia following Kingpin's fall from grace, it is a duo of spiders who head out to investigate. Thanks to MJ's intel, the pair have a pretty good idea where to start: the Museum of Contemporary Art, as one of the items recovered during a recent police raid on the Magia was a famous lost painting known as the Maria, which has since been given over to said museum. According to MJ's sources, the criminals are none too happy about this and intend to steal it back, with this proving to be a good tip-off, as when the pair arrive, they find several hammerhead goons gearing up to break in. Fortunately, Pete has dealt with plenty of these situations before, and so instructs MJ to hang back and wait for his signal to strike, since if possible, he'd like to take these creeps out without starting a firefight. Recognizing the sense in this and acknowledging that Pete is more experienced than her, MJ accepts these orders and thwips to higher ground while her partner gets closer, whipping a couple of goons to lampposts while marking others she can swing down and incapacitate with a dropkick before returning to the shadows. Thanks to this teamwork, it takes very little time at all for the duo to clear out the interlopers and make their way inside, with Peter stating that he'll investigate why the museum guards didn't respond to the break-in attempt, while he wants MJ to track down the Maria and make sure it's still in its case. Nodding, the redhead reporter wastes no time in descending to the atrium where the painting sits pride of place in the back, surrounded on all sides by bulletproof glass. However, what is far less protected is the front door, as having not heard back from the first team in a while, a new group of hammerhead goons decide to drive a couple of SUVs right into the entranceway, and to make matters worse, a few of the guys who climb out a moment later are armed with rocket launchers. Knowing this isn't a fight she can win stealthily, MJ springs into action, swing kicking the first guy to get out of a car, then calling up Pete and requesting backup. In a worried voice, the original Spidey hero tells her he's on his way, though it seems for the moment she's on her own. While this isn't exactly the first fight she thought she'd be having as a hero, MJ knows this is what all her training has been for, with this giving her confidence as she launches another thug into the air, before webbing a third one's gun to his chest when her Spidey sense warns her he's about to shoot her in the back. For good measure, she also deploys a couple of spider drones to help her out, with her aggressive programming making them the ideal backup, as they quickly stun a few more enemies, while MJ herself catches a rocket mid-flight and sends it swinging back at the guy who fired it. From above, her approving voice then calls out that she's got some good moves, and looking up, MJ sees Pete swing onto the scene, delivering a swift finish to one goon, then fluidly moving to do the same to another. Smiling fondly, she replies that he's not too shabby either, then as her web shooters recharge, she swings forward to join her partner in finishing off the last few interlopers. Together, such a task is child's play, with the proficient pair of Spider-Man and Spinnerette soon finding themselves the last ones standing, though neither is complaining as it gives them a chance to reconvene, as Peter explains that the reason no guards came is because they'd all been drugged, a fact that strikes him as odd, since it doesn't line up with Hammerhead's usual MO. Shrewdly, MJ questions if he thinks this whole thing could be a setup, to which Pete admits that he doesn't know, that to be safe they better check on the Maria. Nodding in agreement, MJ joins him in thwipping over to the protective glass box, though upon inspecting it looks fine, causing her to wonder if she's just being paranoid. That is until she spots something carving a hole in the ceiling of the case, as it is one of the only parts not made of bulletproof glass. Then, a moment later, a figure drops down through the hole, coming within arm's reach of the famous artwork, while the glass that was meant to protect it from thieves now protects her from the heroes. At once, Peter grows tense, though the newcomer, a woman with white hair and a black suit, seems to find the situation rather amusing, claiming that Peter, or as she calls him, Spider, looks good, before smirking that MJ must be that ex he could never get over, though he never mentioned she had powers. That must make things interesting in the bedroom. As she had hoped, this badly flusters Peter, allowing her a chance to try and claim her prize unopposed. Though having a pretty good idea who the newcomer is, MJ asks how Black Cat is active again when the police have her stuff under lock and key. Smirking devilishly, the cat burglar chuckles that Spider helped her out there. All she had to do was challenge him to a little scavenger hunt, and wait for his persistence to work in her favor. In an icy, almost bitter tone, Peter explains that Felicia promised to go straight if he could catch her before she stole $50 million worth of loot, though it was all a setup, since every place she had him look had a cat figurine that he collected and turned over to the police, just like she knew he would. And when all of them were assembled in one place, they disabled the alarms and let her sneak in unseen, making him her unwitting accomplice in the theft of her gear. In contrast to Peter's seriousness, Felicia remains coy as she smirks they work well together, though she is disappointed he's not wearing the suit she made him as a parting gift, with something in the way she says this sending a shiver down MJ's spine that has nothing to do with Spidey sense. Clearing her throat, the redhead then returns to the topic at hand, flatly stating that they can't let Felicia steal the Maria, though still smirking. The cat burglar replies that she's not here for the art, only to shock both Pete and MJ by smashing the famous portrait over her knee and recovering a flash drive from inside the frame. Furiously, Peter demands to know what Felicia thinks she's doing, though instead of answering, she simply points to a hanging exhibit that is about to fall on some trapped goons, and comments that it looks like he has lives to save. This once again proves just how well Felicia knows him, since in spite of their crimes, Peter does not hesitate to save the henchman with his webs, giving her a chance to escape. Or at least, she would have one if not for MJ, who was all too happy to stop her in her tracks, smashing the glass with a punch and firing off some impact webbing that catches Felicia in the side and pins her to a wall. Feeling that she is in control of the situation at last, MJ warns the other woman to stay where she is since they're not done. Though scowling deeply, Felicia firmly states that she doesn't have time to play games with Spider-Gal, since she's got a job to do. Coldly, MJ retorts that first, it's spinnerette, and second, Felicia will have to stuff her pockets some other time, since she just destroyed a priceless artwork, so she has to answer for that. However, rather than offer some witty barbs so they may continue their little tete-a-tete, Felicia drops her sardonic affectation, and gravely replies that she's not doing this to get rich. She's here on orders from the Magia, and if she doesn't deliver, they'll kill her son. This declaration stuns MJ, as she'd never imagined anything like that, though unfortunately, this also causes her to drop her guard, with Felicia capitalizing on her inexperience as a crime fighter to cut herself free with her claws and flee back the way she came, though not before telling Spider-Gal to give Spider our love. For a moment, the rookie hero does not speak or move. That is until Pete lands beside her and scowls that he can't believe Felicia got away again. He then prepares to thwip off after her, though upon spotting MJ's changed posture, and knowing her well enough to recognize her shocked expression even through the mask, he stops and asks what's wrong, assuming she's beating herself up about not being able to prevent Felicia's escape, just like he does whenever he lets a villain get away. However, what he receives instead is something he could not have imagined, as having pieced together the cat burglar's not so cryptic hints, MJ relays the news of Felicia's child, before looking him squarely in the eye and asking, "Is he your son too?" And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.